Just as all the pieces of the puzzle are starting to align for the Colorado Avalanche, and the team is feeling and looking the best that they've felt all season, with just a little bit left to go in the regular season, and the 2025 playoffs are right around the corner. An absolutely insane development around the conversation of the captain, Gabriel Landeskog, who has not played a game since Game 6 of the 2022 Stanley Cup Finals against Tampa, has just dropped, and it has massive implications for this Colorado Avalanche team in the remainder of the season and looking ahead into the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. We're going to break it all down on Avalanche Digest right here today, but before we do so, we got to talk about something else. If you are not subscribed to Avalanche Digest, make sure that you are subscribed right now. If you have any doubt whatsoever about whether or not you're subscribed, exit out of this video. Check if you are. If you're not, click that subscribe button and make sure that you are ready to go for all the Avalanche news and updates that you'll ever need, which are right here on Avalanche Digest. Take a look at this right here. All of our watch time from our subscribers, only 26% of you guys that are watching are subscribed versus a whopping 73% of you are tuning into Avs Digest videos, getting all the latest news that you need for Avalanche Digest and Avalanche news, but you're not subscribed. So make sure you click that subscribe button right now so you can be tuned in to all the latest news that you need to know about the Colorado Avalanche. Let's dive into this absolutely insane news that dropped around the captain, Gabriel Landeskog, today. Landeskog will be joining the team on the road to continue skating and doing drills and working with the team to try to get back to 100%, where we can hopefully and possibly see him suit up with the Colorado Avalanche, potentially at the remainder of the season. It's doubtful, but more likely than not, we potentially could see him getting ready to go and taking the ice for the first time since 2022 with the team for the playoffs, which would be an absolutely massive addition for this Avs team. We've already talked about it. The team is already in great shape, even without Landeskog. They've pretty much adjusted to not having him in the lineup since they've had to play 2 full seasons, 2 full playoff runs without him since he last took the ice for the Stanley Cup playoffs, where the Avs won the Stanley Cup in 2022. But for him to come back and potentially play with this team in the playoffs would be an absolutely insane development. Here's a tweet from Megan Angley via Guerrilla Sports this morning. Gabriel Landeskog will join the team on the road to continue skating with them. Having him on the road, continually doing drills and with the team, it's just as getting him more acclimated and more settled in with this Avs team, who's already very deep and has a lot of cohesion as we approach the remainder of the season. But he's a guy, Landeskog that is, who's been around in the locker room talking with all these guys. His presence is felt amongst all these players and this team in general. But to have him actually out on the ice doing drills and skating and getting added into this depth and into this equation would be an absolutely insane add for the Colorado Avalanche. Now, talking more about him at practice specifically, a quote here from Drew Livingston: Landeskog looks unreal at Avalanche practice today. Imagine getting them back on the left wing to start the playoffs. It would be absolutely electric. Now, we've talked about it a ton here on Avs Digest. The Avalanche basically just dialed in their lineup right after the trade deadline, picking up huge pieces like Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle, Ryan Lindgren, and even Eric Johnson on the defensive side, who's a huge locker room person for the Colorado Avalanche, has a ton of experience with this team and plays a huge role in the cohesion and the attitude that everyone has heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs. But for him to, Landeskog that is, to be back on the ice, getting incorporated with how deep this team already is and finding where he fits in, because of course, since he's last played, the team has changed so much. I mean, obviously the big change, there's no more Mikko Rantanen. You lose other players that you had on that 2022 Stanley Cup run, such as Nazem Kadri, Andrei Burakovsky. So there's no really way of telling how Landeskog is going to fit in to the lineup if he were to join the team coming into the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. But regardless, as the captain of the team, he brings so much to the locker room. He's such a large presence for that team, and to have him actually back on the ice leading his team, skating with the team, and playing in these very intense and crucial games in the Stanley Cup playoffs would be a massive implication for the Colorado Avalanche. Take a look at a quote here from Gabe himself, who has had a huge presence on the media side of things lately. When he joined Spittin' Chicklets, one of the things that he talked to the hosts of the Chicklets podcast was just being in there, as in the locker room and with the team, and competing and actually sitting across the room from somebody, and you're trying to accomplish the same thing. You're all pulling on the same rope. Essentially what he means here is he's been around and he's been very present and around a lot with this team through the playoffs, through practice, through regular season games. He's been all over the place as far as within staying integrated with the team, but on his side of things and from his point of view, to get to actually be in the pads, in the jersey, wearing that burgundy and blue Avs sweater and fighting for the exact same thing that all these other guys are fighting for in the locker room. It's a piece that he feels like he's really missing, and it's something that he is absolutely ready to have back in his hockey career. It's been over 2 years since he last took the ice with the Colorado Avalanche, and he's ready to get that sweater back on and play with this team in full force. And another interesting conversation kind of around Landeskog's resurgence and everything that's going on with him right now is just his media presence in general. There's been so much of a highlight around his injury and getting kind of the full details and the full timeline of everything lately. He has this documentary coming out called A Clean Sheet, where he essentially breaks down and overviews everything that has been going on in the world of his injury, all the way back to the 2020 bubble season when his quad got cut by Cale Makar's skate, which was the initial injury that has set him out of the Avs lineup since 2022. And on top of that, obviously joining the Spittin' Chicklets podcast gave him a ton of media attention and rose the conversation all around everything that's been going on a personal level for his injury timeline and kind of what he thinks he wants to do as far as his next steps for getting back on the ice in that Avs sweater and actually playing with this team in this lineup. Another huge conversation topic around Gabriel Landeskog, and a lot of social media critics are talking about this as well, is would he even ever return? Is he going to retire? A lot of people think he's done. He should hang up the skates for good, and that his injury is not standing the test of time, and he's not going to be able to make it back and play. But he's made it very clear in all these media stunts that he's been doing lately, Spittin' Chicklets, a clean sheet, the documentary coming out, and the 50-minute sit-down with Altitude Sports for the Colorado Avalanche broadcast system, kind of for him sitting down and talking about his timeline. He's made it very clear that he's ready to get back in this thing. And for all the work that he's put in, everything that he's done to get back to this Colorado Avalanche lineup, he's not ready to give up now. He wants to do it for himself, for his family, and for all the people on the team, both from a management standpoint and from a player and a coaching standpoint, who have missed him and it's been so long without Landeskog being in the lineup that having him come back would be absolutely insane. Now, obviously, there's a ton of conversation around, will Landeskog come back? Well, let's say he does. Let's say that he makes his return for the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. The biggest question is, where does he fit into this brand new lineup that we now see ahead of the 2025 trade deadline? I mentioned it a little bit ago, but the lineup has changed exponentially since the 2022 Stanley Cup playoffs when Landeskog was actually playing with the team. The biggest change recently is obviously losing Mikko Rantanen and adding players such as Marty Necas, Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle, and Ryan Lindgren. And of course, Eric Johnson as well. Having him in the lineup is massive. But where does Landeskog fit into this new lineup? Obviously at the left wing, you'd see him mostly potentially replacing Arturi Lehkonen, Jonathan Drouin, or Yoel Kiviranta. I personally think that number one line, Lehkonen, MacKinnon, Necas, it does not need to be messed with right now. They are meshing so well together. Necas and MacKinnon specifically. I mean, there's so much conversation around that this team might be better with Necas over Rantanen just because of how much of a threat Necas is on the power play and how well he meshes with Nathan MacKinnon. And then, of course, you think of if Landeskog would go on that two line with Brock Nelson and Valeri Nichushkin, replacing Jonathan Drouin. Jonathan Drouin has been hot, though. He scored recently in a game for the Avalanche and has been putting up lots of points and just numbers in general, and showing the depth and the cohesion that he has with this Avs team. So not necessarily sure if replacing him would be the best spot there, but it's definitely possible. And I mean, Landeskog playing with a vet like Brock Nelson and a big body player like Valeri Nichushkin, who can not only generate offense, but make a ton of good defensive moves and just be such a two-way player for this Avs team, would be definitely interesting. Now, I personally, my opinion, if I were the Avs coach and I had the power of getting these lineups set, the first thing that I would experiment with is putting Landeskog on that third line and replacing Yoel Kiviranta with Gabriel Landeskog. The line would be Landeskog, Charlie Coyle, and Ross Colton. And I think that easing Landeskog into that third line, kind of letting him test the waters a little bit with actual game scenarios, especially playoffs, since he hasn't played a real NHL hockey game since 2022, would be perfect. And you're not only giving him kind of an opportunity to test the waters with his injury and get back into the swing of things, but you're also giving two kind of newer-ish players, Charlie Coyle and Ross Colton, who are still kind of gaining their presence in the league and really getting to that veteran status. They're getting an absolutely amazing figure on that line. Gabriel Landeskog having a mentorship aspect and getting to play with those two younger guys would be, I think it would have a lot of really strong implications for the Avs. So not sure where Landeskog would fit into this lineup, but nonetheless, the fact that it's even a chance that he will make a return for the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs has massive implications for what this Colorado Avalanche team is going to be able to do in the postseason, as a lot of hockey critics and people around the social media world of hockey are really starting to make the conversation prominent of Avs are dangerous. You do not want to get caught against the Colorado Avalanche in the playoffs. They are in a cup or bust mentality. MacKinnon said it in a press conference the other day. They have the utilities to do what they need to do to win the Stanley Cup, and they're ready to do it right here, right now.